This is Computer Science 1213, Intro to Computing. I'm Chris Rule, the instructor, and this is a video about the worksheet, Arrays and For Loops. Now on this worksheet, it talks about the Fibonacci numbers right here. And just a quick explanation of what that is. You take the previous two numbers in the list, add them together, and you get the next number. So for example, if we take 0 and 1 and add them together, we get 1. And then if we take 1 and 1 and add them together, we get 2. And then if we take 1 and 2 and add them together, we get 3. 2 and 3 gives us 5. 3 and 5 gives us 8. 5 and 8 gives us 13. 8 and 13 gives us 21. 21 and 13 gives us 34. 34 and 21 gives us 55, and so on and so forth. So it gives us a list of numbers. So it says, consider the following series of Java statements that initialize the first several Fibonacci numbers. So what we have here, first we have a comment indicated by the two slashes. Code example number 1 is just a comment. Then we have an integer called A1, and we set the value to 0. So what we've got is a type of integer as opposed to a double type value or a string. So this is an integer. We call it A1, the name, and we give it a value of 0. The integer A2, we give a value of 1. Integer A3, we give a value of 1. Integer A4, we give a value of 2. And integer A5, we give a value of 3. These are the first 5 numbers in the Fibonacci sequence. So we could do that. There's a series of 5 variables, and we put the numbers in each one. The second code example, another comment says declaration. This is a declaration of an array. It's integer numbers. The array will hold only integers. The square brackets here indicate that it is an array. The name of the array is numbers. This is the name of the array. And it's new. And we're going to make an array of integers, and it's going to have a maximum set of 5. And these are elements. Each spot that holds a value in an array is called an element. And each number that's used inside the square brackets is an index number. So this creates the array, it creates the space for the array without anything in it. And we can have up to 5 elements or spots to hold values. And they're all called numbers. They just have a different index number for each one. So we have numbers 0, numbers 1, numbers 2, numbers 3, numbers 4. And if you add these up to get a count, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's a total of 5 different lines here. In the first line, the first element in the array that has an index number of 0 holds a 0. The next array element, which has an index number of 1, holds a 1. The next array element that has an index number of 2 holds a 1. The next array element that has an index number of 3 holds a 2. And the final array element with index number 4 holds a 3. So these are all stored in this array. So in the previous programs we've done, we would use a separate variable for each item. But now we can declare an array and put the integers in here. One thing to notice is that the type of all these different things that are put into each one of these elements is the same. We don't have an integer in one and a string in the other and a decimal or double in another. The type is always the same in the array. In the questions down here, the first question is only talking about example 1, which is here. It says, what is the data type of the variables beginning with the letter A? Well, this should be a clue right here. How many variables beginning with letter A have been created? And I'll let you figure that out. If we wanted to represent the first 25 numbers in the Fibonacci sequence, how many variables would this require? And I'll let you take a shot at that one. Okay. Now this next set of questions deals with example 2. And the first thing it says is, what is the data type of the variable numbers? Well, an array is a data type. We've had integer and double and string and character. This is an array type. Number 2, what is the value of numbers index number 2? So the array type is given because of these square brackets as an array. That's the type. The name will be the name of the array followed by the index number in square brackets. That's the name. And the value is the number to the right of the equal sign. So you can answer B and C based on that information. Now, number 3. When we declare an array, the data type of the variable with the square brackets notation, we are indicating the variable is an array. And what we're talking about here in number 3 is this line right here. So when the double brackets, the square brackets are used in a declaration statement, that means it is an array. What is the name of the variable, array variable? Okay, the name is given right there. It's an array type that will only hold integers. That's what's going on here. We're going to have integers in an array type called numbers that has a capacity of 5 integers. What is the size of the array? That's declared right here. Number 4, when we use an array, the number between the square brackets refers to the index of the array. It allows us to access the individual value in the array. Now that's kind of big. It allows us to access individual value in the array. So if we wanted to print out the value of the array numbers, element 3 has an index of 3, then we could identify it by the name and the index number, and then print its value or do something else with its value. So you can pick out individual elements in the array because of that index number. What index does an array begin with? Now this is always the same. So in our array up here, we're talking about these index numbers. here, 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 and here. These are the index numbers. Notice the first one is a 0. Arrays always begin with 0. Does the size of the array affect the starting index of the array? No, because they always start with 0. They might end at 5, they might end at 50, but they start with 0. What is the ending index of the array? Now this is just not any array, this is this array that we're talking about. So let's look back up here. The last index here is a 4. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the question said, what is the ending index of the array? Well, it's 4. Does the size of the array affect the ending index of the array? What was the size of the array? Well, if we go back to the declaration statement, the size of the array was 5. The last index number was 4. So here's the thing. The last index number of an array is always one less than the size or the length of the array. The length of this array is 5 elements. The highest index number is 4. One less than that. This is always true. You always start with 0, and the last number is always one less than the size of the array. So yeah, it does. It's always one less. What changes to the declaration in code example 2 would be required if we wanted to store the first 25 numbers in the Fibonacci sequence? Well, the declaration statement is here. Everything would be fine, except that instead of a 5 right here, you would put in a 25. Assume you want to work with an array of 50 with the name averages of the type double. A lot of stuff there. Give the Java code to declare this array. So keep in mind, I'm going to scroll up so it won't be there, but keep in mind 50 averages double. So what we're going to do up here, and I can do this over here, we will put double with the open and close square brackets, averages equals double, open bracket 50, close bracket, and a semicolon to indicate the end of the line. Oh, I need the new, because it's a new array. So double open close bracket averages equals new double 50. Now, if you're going to set the first position in the array to the number 123.456, see, being a double, you can have values to the right of the decimal, numbers to the right of the decimal. So in this one, for integers, we had the name, so we'll put the name. I'll have to fix this. No, maybe not. averages, open, equals 123.456. So there's the Java code. I didn't put anything in here. This is going to be the first array element. And the first array element is always a 0. So the first array element, it says, give the Java code to set the first position in the array to the number 123.456. The first position is going to be a 0, just like it is up here. It's a 0. The index number is 0. And then C, give the Java code to set the last position in the array, number 987.654. So I put in averages, and then my square brackets equals 987.654. Okay, on this one, what goes here? I've got 50 elements in here. And if you recall, the last index number is always one less than the total number of elements you have. So this will be 49. From 0 to 49 is 50 positions in this array. All right, 7, compare code example 1 and code 2 in model 1. What's the benefit of using an array? Well, if you were going to use an array and load in values, you could do this in a loop where you increment the index number and then set the value in, whether it's a user input or from another table, and it'd be much easier, a lot less typing, to fill that array with the numbers. And once you get them, since they're all the same type, you can manipulate those values in many different ways. So it's a quicker and more efficient way to store lots amount of data. We only need to name the entire array once rather than multiple separate names. What would the output be from the following statements? Let's take a look at this. Integer I, so we've got an integer type called I that has a value of 0. Print out numbers I, and then increment I by 1. It starts out as 0. Now this would be from example 2. And what it's going to do, it would print, this first one, it would print the value in index 0 of numbers, which is a 0. Then it's going to change the value of I to 1, and it will print out the value that's in the numbers array that has an index of 1, which is a 1. So it would print out a 0, then it would go down to the next line, and it would print out a 1. Now that's based on these values here. It would print out this 0, then it would print out that 1 in this particular set. This right here means to increment the value of I by 1. So it goes from 0 to 1, it goes up 1. There's also a piece of code. If you use a double minus, it would go down by 1. I thought that was kind of interesting. So this concludes the worksheet on arrays and for loops.